Good morning. Welcome back to another Theory Thursday. Today we are doing a part 4 to these quick fire questions that I found on guitarlessonsbybrian.com. Now I don't know him. I'm not affiliated in any way, but I was just looking for some video ideas online and I came across all these questions that he had on his site. And I thought, what a cool idea for a video. So here we are. I got a couple more questions for you today, and that's what we're doing. I have my Casio 230GA on today. And as always, if you've been enjoying these, please like and subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the channel out, and make sure these videos get to the people that want to see them and can use the information. I also love making these, and I want to keep doing it. So it helps out tremendously. So yeah, without further ado, I think that's it. Let's do some quick fire questions. Let's go. All right, back with number 4. Question 1. What is a whammy bar? Now, usually I'd take my guitar out and show you, but I don't have my... Actually, I think it's in the closet. I have one Stratocaster, and it's a parts caster that I made, and that's the only guitar I have that has a whammy bar. But basically what it is it's also called a tremolo bar, which is wrong technically, which we'll talk about that in the next question. A whammy bar and tremolo bar. What it does is, if you can see this telly here, the strings go through the body, up through the bridge, and up to the neck. On a Stratocaster, the strings go through a block in the bridge and then up to the neck. They don't touch the body of the guitar at all. They go through the bridge instead of through the body. And what it does is, on the Stratocaster in the back, if you take off your little back plate, there's going to be springs back there. And that whole bridge that you have on that Stratocaster, usually if it's a model that has it, they do make hardtail Strats now. But if it has this, then that whole bridge can move. So what you do is you take your whammy bar and you screw it in, and I'll put a picture somewhere up here. And when you put pressure on it, it moves the whole bridge up and down. So what does that do? It takes the strings, and when you press down the whammy bar, here's the headstock, here's the bridge. So this is what's moving. The strings are running across here. When you put pressure on it, right, here's the whammy bar, and you press it down, the bridge is getting lifted up. The string length stays the same, but it's loosening the tension. Okay, so here's your string, and it's loosening the tension. So what do we know happens when you loosen the tension of a string at your tuning pegs? The pitch goes down. Okay, so what's happening is you can play a chord and then tap the whammy bar, go, excuse me, if the chord is da, and you press the whammy bar, what you're going to hear is what you're doing is you're taking all the strings and bringing them all down the same tension and bringing them all back up. So everything works together. It's all relative. It's a real cool invention. That was there's a fantastic history behind all this. When people say whammy bar, what they're thinking of is Leo Fender's invention. But he's not actually the one that invented this. I would probably credit it to Paul Bigsby. There's a great book on this, actually. Do I have it up on my shelf? I think it's called The Birth of Rock and Roll. Yeah, I can't find it right now. Oh, there it is. Birth of Loud. The Birth of Loud by Ian Port. Fantastic history of the electric guitar with Les Paul, Leo Fender, and Paul Bigsby. Fantastic history. But yeah, that's what we're talking about when we say whammy bar. It's just this device that takes the strings and lowers them all the same, and then brings them all back up the same. So you're taking the pitch and going down, and then come back up, and you can do it as fast as your hand can move. So it can be really wah, 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 or real slow dive bomb, and then come back up. That's what a whammy bar is. Also known as a tremolo bar, erroneously. So let's talk about question number 2. What is vibrato? Okay, now vibrato comes from the Italian word vibrare, which is Italian for vibrate. So I'm sure you knew that already. And most instruments can do it. You'll hear it most often in the human voice. I can't do it. I'm not a singer. But basically what you're doing is you're taking a note and wavering the pitch ever so slightly and very fast. And that's what vibrato is. It's a great effect. It's a great sound. And you're saying, John, that sounds like what the whammy bar does and the tremolo bar. Is it the same? So here's the thing. Vibrato deals with pitch, and that's what we were just talking about. Pitch going up and down. I can't do it with my voice. I don't know why I tried. Now, the other word that people get mixed up with this is tremolo. And it's a similar effect, but it's a different variable. So with vibrato, we're dealing with changing the pitch very quick, up and down. With tremolo, we're dealing with changing the volume very quick. So it's got a very similar effect. It's still that sound, but it's achieved by two different things, two different factors. So vibrato is changing pitch. Tremolo is changing volume very fast. Okay? So, in actuality, we'll go back to question 1. What is a whammy bar? It's also called a tremolo bar, but that's wrong, because with that bar, you're not changing the volume, you're changing the pitch. It should be called a vibrato bar. It's a little interesting piece of information for you. So, there you go. There's probably more information than you wanted on the subject. Question number 3. How can I change chords faster? It's a good question. If you're asking this, you're probably at the beginning of your guitar journey, or you're just learning some chords, or you've learned some bunch of the cowboy chords, and you're getting stuck on the bar chords, or somewhere in the beginning segment of your journey. The biggest thing is just practice. You have to put in the time to get your hand to recognize the patterns you want it to, and then at some point it's just going to be muscle memory, right? If I pick up a guitar, I can instantly play my G, C, D, E minor, right? All those cowboy chords whenever I want without looking at it, just because I've put in the reps, and so that's part of it. Another thing you can do though is take a look at when you're switching these chords and find common tones where you don't need to pick up your fingers. For example, if you're playing a G with all 4 fingers, so that looks like a middle finger on your low E string, 3rd fret, index fingers on the 2nd fret, A string, then you have open string, ring finger on the B string, 3rd fret, that's a D note. And then your pinky on the top string, 3rd fret. Okay? So that's a G with all 4 fingers. If you switch to a D, which is open D string, index on the G string, 2nd fret, your ring finger is on the B string, 3rd fret. And then, of course, your middle finger on the top, 2nd fret. So your ring finger's in the same exact spot as it was with the G. So if you're switching from that G to a D, you don't need to take all your fingers up, plant them back down. Right? Keep that ring finger down, and it gives your hand some relative location of where you're at. So little things like that, if you can really focus on where your hands are going and as little movement as possible, right? This finger doesn't have to move. So that's just little things like that. Repetitions, and really know the chords inside and out so you know what's the least amount of movement I can do to get here. Because if you're doing the least amount of movement, theoretically, that would be the fastest, right? If you can get it down. So that's that. Number 4, how can I make practice time most effective? This is a great question. I would say make a plan. Now, it sounds easier. It's more easier said than done. So make a plan. What the heck do I mean? Have a routine of, this is how long I'm going to spend on technique. This is how long I'm going to spend on new material. This is how long I'm going to spend on material I already know really well, and I just want to play for joy's sake, or material that is in a completely different genre that you just love playing, right? So break up your practice routine in certain things that you know you need to work on, technique, new pieces, and then save some time to do stuff just for doing it, just because you love doing it. So I would say make a plan. It doesn't have to be that exactly, right? And everyone's time is different, right? How long they have to practice every day. But I think that's the fastest way to have the most effective session, is make a plan first of all. So that's that. Question number 5. What's the difference between steel and nylon string? The material, really. Quickest way you can, just looking at a guitar, you can tell. They're very different. The sound's very different. The feel's very different. Playing it's very different. And it's just all the material. So if you're looking at a classical guitar with nylon strings, most often the G, B, and E string, the high strings, are just straight nylon. Okay, and that's a soft material, so it's easier on your fingers, and it's a lot warmer tone. And then the bottom 3 strings, E, A, D, are nylon core, still that nylon soft material, and then wrapped in some sort of metal. It depends on what strings you're getting and all that stuff. So they're just nylon core. So it's a real mellow, it's a real warm sound, and it's soft on your fingers. It's warm, I think, is the best way I can describe it. Now, steel string, I should also say the nylon, that came up about like around World War II, right after, because what used to be used was something called catgut, which is actually sheep intestine, and that's what we used for guitar strings up until it was a limited resource and expensive to get. And then thankfully science came around and said, how about these? And it was a cheap alternative, and it's a more consistent structure, and it's cheap. So that's where the nylon comes from. Not to say you still can't get sheep intestine strings, but they're more expensive, and do you really want them? So, and then on the flip side is the steel string. So instead of the nylon, it's steel wire. So your top 3 strings, your G, B, and E, are just straight steel wire, just metal. So a lot sharper on your fingers, a lot harder. Not harder as in difficult, but harder as in the material. And harder as in difficulty too. I mean, if you haven't built up your calluses yet, those are going to rip up your fingers more than nylon would. And then your bottom 3 strings, E, A, D, are steel core wrapped with whatever metal the company chooses. That's the thing, is different companies add their own twists and all that stuff to their strings, but at its core, things are either steel core or just straight steel strings, or nylon core, straight nylon strings. So that's the difference. And the steel strings are a lot more crisp, a lot more, I don't want to say trebly, because they still have some heft to them, and bassy, and just not as warm as nylon strings. Because it's not like steel strings are shrill and hard to listen to. That's not the case at all. It's just they're less warm than nylon strings. So that's the main difference. Question number 6, and I think I'm going to make this the last one. We've gone on for 15 minutes here. Should I practice with a drum machine? Yeah. I mean, I don't think it would hurt anything. To me, that sounds like the same thing as practicing with a metronome, which is never a bad thing. Never a bad thing. More people need to practice with metronome. So if this drum machine keeps you on time and keeps you in beat, heck yeah, practice with it. Go for it. Yeah, metronome, drum machine, something that keeps you in time is never a bad thing. It helps your rhythm. It helps you internalize whatever you're playing, internalize that tempo, where it should be. If you're making mistakes, that metronome or drum machine is going to let you know. If you're putting things in the wrong places, if you're skipping beats, if you're slowing down, if you're speeding up, that thing is the truth teller. So, and you're never the metronome is never the wrong one in the situation. So that's what I like about it. So yeah, should you practice with a drum machine? Sure. Why not? Yeah, it's like a metronome, but with better sound. Yeah. No problems with that. So I think that's enough information for today. This video's been long enough. As always, if you've been enjoying these, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel, helps me out. I love making these videos, and I want to keep making them, and that helps these videos get to the people that want to see them. So that's enough information for today. I think that'll do it. I'll see you for the next one.